noteworthy example. However, Uriel also grew in pride and self-assurance. Jagar Tharn fed Uriel's pride, and hiding behind the mask of an outpaced former Master Counselor, Tharn purchased the complete trust that led... Purchased? Yeah. Okay, so this is who it was talking about, Jagar Tharn. Okay. So Jagar Tharn fed Uriel's pride, and hiding behind the mask of an outpaced former Master Counselor, Tharn purchased the complete trust that led finally to Uriel's betrayal and imprisonment in Oblivion, and Tharn's secret usurpation of the Imperial throne. Years 389 through 399 of the Third Era, betrayed and imprisoned. Little is known of Uriel's experience while trapped in Oblivion. He says he remembers nothing but an endless sequence of waking and sleeping nightmares. He says he believed himself to be dreaming and had no notion of passage of time. Publicly, he long claimed to have no memory of the dreams and nightmares of his imprisonment, but from time to time, during the interviews with the Emperor that form the basis of his biography, he would relate details of nightmares he had, and would describe them as similar to the nightmares he had when he was imprisoned in Oblivion. He seemed not so much unwilling as incapable of describing the experience. But it is clear that the experience changed him. In year 389 of the Third Era, he was a young man, full of pride, energy, and ambition. During the Restoration, after his rescue and return to the throne, he was an old man, grave, patient, and cautious. He also became conservative and pessimistic, where the policies of his early life were markedly bold, even rash. Uriel accounts for this change as a reaction to and revulsion for the early teachings and counsel of Jagar Tharn. However, Uriel's exile in Oblivion also clearly drained and wasted him in body and spirit, though his mind retained the shrewd cunning and flexibility of his youth. The story of Tharn's magical impersonation of the Emperor, the unmasking of Tharn's imposture by Queen Berenzia, and the roles played by King Eadwir, Rhea Silmain, and her champion in assembling the Staff of Chaos, defeating the renegade Imperial battle mage Jagar Tharn, and restoring Uriel to the throne, is treated at length in Stern Gamboge's excellent 3-volume biography of Berenzia. There's no reason to recount that narrative here. Summarized briefly, Jagar Tharn's neglect and mismanagement of imperial affairs resulted in a steady decline in the Empire's economic prosperity, allowing many petty lords and kings to challenge the authority of the Empire, and permitted strong local rulers in the East and the West to indulge in open warfare over lands and sovereign rights. Years 399 through 415 of the Third Era. Restoration, the Miracle of Peace, and Vardenfell. During the Restoration, so this is after he's been freed, which I believe is... I believe that was the first game, Arena, or maybe the second game, Daggerfall. I can't quite remember. So during the Restoration, Uriel Septim turned from the aggressive campaign of military intimidation and diplomatic accommodation of his earlier years, and relied instead on clandestine manipulation of affairs behind the scenes, primarily through the agencies of the various branches of the Blades. A complete assessment of the methods and objectives of this period must wait until after the Emperor's death, when the voluminous diaries archived at his country estate may be open to the public, and when the Blades no longer need to maintain secrecy to protect the identities of its agents. Two signal achievements of this period point to the efficacy of Uriel's subtle policies. The Miracle of Peace, also popularly known as the Warp in the West, excuse me. Okay, I had to get a drink. So, let's go. Two signal achievements of this period point to the efficacy of Uriel's subtle policies. The Miracle of Peace, also popularly known as the Warp in the West, that transformed the Iliac Bay region from an unruly assortment of warring petty kingdoms into the well-ordered and peaceful modern counties of Hammerfell, Sentinel, Wayrest, and Orsinium, and the colonization of Vardenfell, presided over by the skillful machinations of King Helseth of Morrowind and Lady Berenzia, the Queen Mother, which brought Morrowind more closely into the sphere of imperial influence. So the next entry is on the years 415 through 430 of the Third Era. The Golden Peace, King Helseth's Court, and the Nine in the East. Following the Miracle of Peace, best described in Der Wettersen's Daggerfall, A Modern History, the Empire entered a period of peace and prosperity, comparable to the early years of Uriel's reign. With the imperial hearthland and West solidly integrated into the Empire, Uriel was able to turn his full attention to the east, to Morrowind. Exploiting conflicts at the heart of Morrowind's monolithic tribunal religion and the long-established Great House system of government, and taking advantage of the terrible threat that the corrupted divine beings at the heart of the tribunal religion presented to the growing colonies on Vardenfell, Uriel worked through shadowy agents of the Blades and through the court of King Helseth in Mournhold to shift the center of political power in Morrowind from the Great House councils to Helseth's court, and took advantage of the collapse of the orthodox tribunal cults to establish the Nine Divines as the dominant faiths in Hlaalu and Vardenfell districts. So I believe that is describing the events of the third game, Morrowind. I watched a little bit of someone else's Let's Play of Morrowind, that being Gix, who really does a great job and inspired me to do my own Let's Play. I think that's talking about Morrowind, because I remember there was definitely the Empire had sent you, had hired you basically as an agent to go interrupt the religion and the various clan houses and stuff. So yeah, Hasfat Anabolus's treatment of the establishment of the Nine in the East in his 4-volume Life and Times of the Nerevarine, right, so Morrowind is about the Nerevarine, the player character. So Hasfat, what's his name? Hasfat Anabolus's treatment of the establishment of the Nine in the East in his 4-volume Life and Times of the Nerevarine is comprehensive. However, he fails to resolve the central mystery of this period. How much did Uriel know about the prophecies of the Nerevarine, and how did he learn of their significance? The definitive resolution of this and other mysteries must await the future release of the Emperor's private papers, or a relenting of the Blade's strict policies of secrecy concerning their agents. Okay, so that's the last page. And I think I actually can answer that question that's posed here in the text. How much did Uriel know about the prophecies of the Nerevarine? Probably everything, because Tiber Septim, the founder of the Septim dynasty and founder of the Empire, achieved divinity himself, and probably took action to leave notes for his great however many times grandson, or whatever, his descendant, because he would have, as a divine, he would have, foreseen the need. And if not him, it's entirely possible that the Blades also may have known about the Nerevarine, because they're an extremely ruthless and cutthroat organization that also happens to have an extremely long-term vision, and a sense of the grandeur of history. Like they've survived thousands of years. So I suspect Uriel knew at least something about the Nerevarine. Okay, so that was the first book I wanted to read. That was kind of fascinating, actually. And here's the other one. I wonder if this one is going to be more relevant for us. Let's read this. Okay, Songs of the Return, Volume 2. I don't believe we've read Volume 1, but that's okay. The First Tale of the Durumzu. Our great lord Isigramor, the harbinger of us all, did then send forth his 2 beloved sons, with him the only other survivors of the brutalities at Sarthal, to seek out the bravest warriors of the land and mount the Great Return. Oh, okay. So this is a book about when Isigramor had been driven out of Sarthal by the I believe the Snow Elves, and returned to Atmora, the continent north of Tamriel, and gathered the 500 companions to return and force the Snow Elves back out and reclaim the settlement in Skyrim. Okay, so let's see. I did then send forth his 2 sons to seek out the bravest warriors. Okay. Are those V's? No, those are Y's. Yeah. Ingol and Ilgar, they were called, and they were known among Atmora as fine warriors with bright eyes and dawning futures. Ingol, the elder, was the brave strategist, bringing his learnings to bear on the battlefield that his enemies would be defeated before they even knew the battle had begun. Ilgar, the younger, was possessed of an unwavering spirit that drove his singular prowess to overwhelming feats in war. Together, the mind and the arm, they were capable of sowing a destruction most thorough and glorious to any foe who stood before them. Before they parted ways to gather their crews, the two clasped arms and necks in the old fashion and laughed at the heavens for their stories to come. Young Ilgar then took to the massive shipyards of... You gotta be kidding me. Ylkervik. Yeah, Ylkervik. Wow, that's a nasty name. So young Ilgar then took to the massive shipyards of Ylkervik at the southern point and commissioned 2 ships for himself and his brother. He would command the Durumzu and his brother the Harak, thus carrying the names of the 2 favored stars in their heavens. The shipmaker's spirits had been suitably filled by Sigurmor's tales of the savage elves, and they set about to birth ships that befit their noble homeland. Arrangements having been made, Ilgar set forth to the academies of honored soldiers, seeking out his most trusted friends and advisors to join him on the venture of the return. By now the stories of the new land to the south were spreading before him, and the mere emergence of his presence was enough to cause the finest warriors to lay down their present undertakings and follow him. So was he able to call to his side the great shield sisters, Froa and Grosta, who thought and spoke as one, and they brought with them the wise war teacher Adrimk, who first taught them to dance among the blades. She, in turn, mustered all the students at her command, whose names were not yet made, but some of whom would one day be known. Hermesker, who threw his shield, Urlach, who breathed fire, Ramph the Greater, Merculian Ramph, and the far-sighted Uch, who would see the first of many dawns. Oh, Mom, Dad, thank you for not naming me Uch. Far-sighted Uch. Alright. On the day of the final passage, when the many-oared fleet would last see the distant green summers of Atmora, the brothers were near in their father's wake as the freshly joined 500 would eagerly press onwards towards Tamriel. Ilgar could see his well-minded brothers smiling from afar across the waves, and they shouted war cries to each other, longing for the soon day when their assembled crews would draw the treacherous elf blood into the ground which they would now claim for their own rights. But Kyne's ministrations are not to be taken lightly, and though her blessings gave wind to drive those brave sailors to their destiny, so too did her mighty tears fall to drive them apart. When the storm of separation first arose, young Ilgar had no fear, for his crew was strong and able, and their ship drove true through the forest of swells as though pulled by the rope of fate. When the skies cleared and Ilgar glimpsed again with new eyes the land of his past and future home, he knew his brother's vessel was not within his horizon. The Durumzu, arriving late, drew forth onto the sands, and Ilgar rushed to his father to seek word of his brother. The great Isigrimor, harbinger of us all, wept for his lost son, and sought comfort in the arms of his only remaining joy. The crew of the Harak became the first deaths among the 500, and Ilgar so enraged with love for his brother that his crew would soon be counted as first among the many noble and honored names in the companions. Whew. Okay, so although none of that had anything to do with Jurgen, I do love reading these books, getting into the lore. Like, we know more now. We know more. You know, we know more about Isigrimor and the return, and the 2 ships and his sons, Ilgar and, was the other one Olgar? Ilgar and something. It doesn't really matter. I'll look it up later and memorize it. But, so we don't really know too much more about Jurgen than that. You know, he was a master of the voice after Red Mountain turned back the Nords. And actually, am I using? No, that's candlelight. I need. Where am I supposed to go? This way. Okay. And he founded the Way of the Voice, which is a path of silence and worship of the glory of the gods. So we have to retrieve his artifact from this barrow. Let's look one more time. The horn of Jurgen Windcaller from his tomb in Ustengrav. Okay. So where is Hallmarch or whatever? Ustengrav, Stonehills. Okay. Well, it looks like it's near Labyrinthian, so fortunately we can fast travel there. I'm trying to think, is there any reason we shouldn't just fast travel right there? I guess that's what we'll do. So we'll go ahead and travel to